April 26, 1986, 1:23 in the morning. Reactor 4 explodes. Firefighters rush to put out the fire. What they didn't know is that they were going straight towards the invisible death. Because yes, we all know about the Chernobyl accident of that year. It was in Pripyat, well, rather in present-day Ukraine. Today, we know what radiation is and what its secondary effects are. The problem? At that time, not much was known about what radiation was. That is why the firefighters want to put out the fire and entered the radioactive cloud. Several families head to the railway bridge on the outskirts of town to view the fire. A child says, "Mom, it's snowing." All the children begin to dance and play with the snow. Some try to eat some flake. Meanwhile, their parents watch the fire and the snow fall. What they did not know is that the supposed snow was radioactive dust. Because yes, that snow, in quotes, was radioactive dust from the explosion. Of course, the cloud did not stay in Pripyat, it spread over much of Europe. The Soviet press remained silent until some Swiss workers, Swiss workers, alerted that they sensed radioactive anomalies. That is why the Soviet press decided to evacuate more than 130,000 people from Pripyat. The night workers are going to check what has gone wrong, the reason for the explosion. "I see nothing. This is the end," says one of the workers upon entering reactor 4. His face begins to decompose. He melts. "There is no going back," says the boy as the radiation eats him up. Sadly, there were around 31 deaths. 31 direct deaths, since, due to the radioactive cloud, about 500,000 people were affected, according to several organizations. The children of pregnant women were born with mutations. We must call them. But to whom? To the liquidators. These people were crucial. So to speak, they were heroes. They were made up of 600,000 people, many of them army reservists who were in charge of extinguishing the remaining radioactive inferno. On May 6, a new stage began. "Don't you dare touch it!" "Why?" "It's very dangerous." Okay, I'm just going to take a picture of it." The elephant food photographer. The elephant's foot is an extremely radioactive mass. It gets its name from its wrinkled appearance and characteristic shape of an elephant's foot. This mass is located under reactor 4. The mythical photo of the man next to the elephant's foot was actually a selfie. An old-fashioned selfie. You put the camera on, you want to stand near the foot, and you have the most famous photo of the Chernobyl accident. Now, let's go step by step. Where is the center located? The plant is located 120 kilometers from the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, 14 kilometers from Chernobyl and 3 from Pripyat, a city created exclusively for the families of plant workers, which came to house some 50,000 people. The construction of the plant began in 1972, and in the 1980s it had 4 nuclear reactors, at which time it became the most powerful nuclear power plant in the world. That April 26, 1986 will go down in history for the tragedy. It was planned that safety tests were carried out in reactor 4, but everything ended in the worst possible way. The result was an overheating of the fuel and the destruction of the reactor base. Thus, at 1:24 in the morning, there were 2 large explosions. In the first one, the roof of the reactor blew off due to a chemical explosion. The second, which followed, was a nuclear explosion. It had a power equivalent to 300 tons of TNT. Among the causes, it can be pointed out that the Soviet safety standards at that time they were more lax than Westerners, and on the other hand, that the experiment was delayed, so it was led by the night shift workers, who were more inexperienced. After the accident, and the Soviet press lit the fuse by saying that radiation was dangerous, an exclusion zone was delimited with a radius of 30 kilometers. On May 2nd, there were more than 130,000 evacuees from the area, and not only Ukrainians, Belarusians also had to flee, as their country was the most affected after Ukraine. Pripyat is still contaminated, and it will take a few years, just 24,000 years, for the plutonium in the area to drop by half. The plant remained operational after the accident, as Ukraine was dependent on nuclear power from that plant. In the year 2000, there were no more workers there. So that the radiation did not spread more than it did, a concrete sarcophagus was built. But, unfortunately, its days were numbered. Those sarcophagi only last 30 years, and radiation is like moths with clothes. Little by little, the radiation was eating away at the concrete. In November 2016, a new sarcophagus called New Safe Sarcophagus was inaugurated, a mobile structure, the largest built to date in the world, which was shaped like an ark and weighed more than 30,000 tons. It was built 180 meters from the reactor and then placed on top of it using a sophisticated rail system. It is estimated that it will last for more than 100 years. The final cost of the structure was 1.5 billion euros. The new structure will make it possible to dismantle the sarcophagus and extract the radioactive material. In 2023, it is expected to complete the destruction of the old structure, the most delicate task of the entire project since it involves working inside the reactor. The name of the city could have its origin in the union of the words chorny, black, and bilia, grass or leaves, and therefore could mean black grass or black leaves. It is also speculated that its name could come from the Ukrainian words polengirki, which is called Artemisia absinthium, a plant abundant in the place. The name Chernobyl was first mentioned in 1193, described as a hunting lodge of the Knyaz, king priest Rotislavich. In 1569, the province containing Chernobyl was transferred to the Kingdom of Poland. And finally, in 1793, the Russian Empire recaptured the entire region. Was Chernobyl relevant to the war between Russia and Ukraine? The capture of Chernobyl, or Battle of Chernobyl, was a military confrontation that occurred in the Chernobyl exclusion zone between the Russian armed forces and the Ukrainian armed forces, which began on February 24, 2022, as part of the invasion of Ukraine. Russian forces managed to take control of the area on the day. The resulting activity led to a 20-fold increase in radiation levels in the area due to the disturbance of contaminated soil. The increase in radiation levels was published on an online map maintained by a Ukrainian NHO, but corresponding sensors at the plant did not show any increase. On March 9, 2022, there was a power outage at the plant itself. No radiation leaks were reported as of March 9, 2022. However, the Ukrainian authorities reported that there was a risk of a radiation leak because the coolant in the spent fuel could not circulate properly. On March 31, 2022, Russian forces formally returned control of the plant to its employees, and most of the occupying forces withdrew. Ukrainian National Guard personnel were transferred to the Belarus as prisoners of war. On April 2, 2022, Ukrainian media reported that the Ukrainian flag was raised at the plant. The Chernobyl operator Energoatom claimed that Russian troops had dug trenches in the most contaminated part of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, receiving significant doses of radiation. BBC News gave unconfirmed reports that some were being treated in Belarus. Now let's go to the present. How is the area currently? In the current Chernobyl, there are still people living and the vegetation has taken control of the entire area. We can see this in series like The Last of Us, that due to the absence of human activity, vegetation grows uncontrollably. The animals are not far behind either. Apart from the fact that some of them had serious mutations, species that are not very common in the area have appeared and have adapted very well. Some of these animals are the brown bear, the lynx, or the wild boar, among others. There are about 5,000 workers who control the area around the plant. The people I have commented on a few moments ago confessed their reasons for returning to their homes.
Ми почуваємося дискримінованими, хочемо повернутися в дитинство, у свій дім.
You have understood it, right? In case it has not been clear to anyone, I translate it for you. We feel discriminated against. We want to return to our childhood, to our home. And indeed, about 600 people live there, and they are a great tourist spot. Wait, it is possible to visit Chernobyl? Yes, although there are some limitations, such as the stay or the price. But if you are curious like me, I encourage you to visit Chernobyl. On one condition, I am not responsible if you come out with 3 eyes and 4 arms. And before saying goodbye, I wanted to make an honorable mention of the HBO Max miniseries Chernobyl. Since the information about the disaster varies, I have taken it from this incredible miniseries that I recommended and encouraged you to watch if you haven't already done so. By the way, HBO hasn't paid me for this. HBO sponsored me. And here is today's podcast, but as always, a curiosity related to the subject. Some bodies from the accident had so much radiation that they had to be buried with lead or concrete coffins so that the radiation did not spread. And up to here, now yes, everything. I hope you like it and don't forget to follow me. I have also enabled the function that you can send me voice messages with questions about history and or geography, requests, and even thanks so that I can put them in the same podcast. The link is in the description. I hope you have been interested in today's topic. Goodbye!